What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. We're now in the final weeks of 2018, and looking back over the last 12 months, it has been a heck of a journey. I've beaten over 60 games this year, and some of them were great and some of them were terrible, but now I'm somebody that really likes to look forward to the future and see what great stuff is coming over the horizon. And honestly, it looks like 2019 is full of some crazy stuff, both big and small. So this week, I want to try and highlight the games that I think look the very best, and personally, I'm the most excited to review on my picks of the top 10 most hyped games of 2019. Number 10. Devil May Cry 5. There's something so uniquely awesome about a fanbase that's super hardcore and keeps begging to get just one more sequel when suddenly they get it. And that is exactly what's happening with Devil May Cry 5. This is a full new adventure starring Nero and Dante and just features even more great hack and slash action. Personally, what got me so excited for it was getting to try out the demo they released recently, which was just so good. Seeing these new bosses and new abilities shows that this is a fresh take on an old series done completely right. Number 9. Anthem. There's obviously a wide range of games that are coming out soon that I'm very excited about, but Anthem is one that's very peculiar because I'm hyped for it while also being simultaneously a little bit worried, because this is a project that is very, very different than anything else that this studio's ever worked on. For the most part, BioWare is kind of famous for their single-player adventures, with a little bit of touches of multiplayer in it, whereas this is an online-only, multiplayer-forced experience that's going to feature all sorts of very Destiny-style themes. But that's part of the reason I'm hyped for it, is really I'm just kind of excited to dig into it and see what exactly is really going on with this rather controversial idea. Number 8. Mortal Kombat 11. It seems like in the gaming world there's an unfortunate thing that you see quite often, which is that if there is a development team that stays together for decade after decade, their projects slowly get worse over time. But one major exception to that rule has freaking gotta be the people behind Mortal Kombat. I mean, I seriously don't know how they do that. The longer these dudes stay together and just keep trying to come up with new ideas, the better they get. I mean, their other side projects like Injustice or some of the weird DLC they did for Mortal Kombat X was so mind-blowing, I literally couldn't believe the fact that they managed to do something so weird and so good simultaneously. So now I'm really at the edge of my seat with curiosity as to what the heck we're going to get in Mortal Kombat 11. Number 7. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. I think we all know by this point that the Dark Souls trilogy is seriously some of the greatest masterpieces ever made, because each one of them is just so tight and fun to play. But I've always thought that one of the few issues it has is that the design in general is very flat. When you're fighting a boss, it only really matters if you step to the right or to the left, trying to avoid that next big blow. And it seems like that specifically is the main thing they're trying to change in Sekiro. This is made by the same people, but now it features much more ninja-like mechanics, allowing you to grapple hook around, take on foes in more diverse manners, and even drop attack on people, making it where as you try and explore these environments, you literally need to watch in every direction simultaneously or you'll end up dying. Number 6. Control. If you've been subscribed to the channel for a while, I'm sure you've heard me mention the fact that Alan Wake is seriously one of my favorite games ever made. The psychological shooter is just so trippy and weird, while simultaneously having a very well-contained story, and Control is by the freaking same people, which is why it is so difficult to contain my hype even while talking about it. Control seems to be trying to play more into the weird aspect of it, highlighting more parts of customized customizing your weapons, fighting off weird enemies, and using psychic abilities to possibly change the environment and solve problems all around you. This is the kind of game I love playing more than anything else, and the fact that we're getting it so soon is just another reason that I gotta freaking go out and grab it. Number 5. Luigi's Mansion 3. If I had to select just a single word to explain why this series is so great, I would definitely pick the word charming. Because while these are sort of like horror games, the main aspect of them is that you're playing as Luigi, having his own little adventure in his own little way. And these are really, really cool. Recently, I actually got a chance to play through all of the first 2 games again, and I really got to further acknowledge why these are so different than any other Mario title. They're actually much more about collecting, about beating bosses, and they really sort of center themselves on the fact that exploration can be a weapon just as much as your ghost-busting vacuum cleaner is. I'm really excited to see what they do with this third one, because we've never seen a Luigi's Mansion game on Nintendo Switch, obviously, and it's a great opportunity to really kind of expand on some of the concepts that made these games so freaking fun in the first place. Number 4. Judgment. The PlayStation 4 in general has such a massive library of good games that range from exclusives in the vein of Bloodborne to stuff like Uncharted, or even the more peculiar stuff like Yakuza. But it's that last game that I really want to highlight here, because the team that made that, the developers of Yakuza over at Sega, they're very good at making peculiar classics. Games that are just so freaking stand out that you can't really compare them to anything else. And this is the latest project by them. We're going to be playing as a detective wandering around different sections of Japan and trying to crack a strange mystery of people who keep turning up dead. Now, if you've ever played a Yakuza game, you know that the story isn't incredibly important. Instead, it's going to be all the quirky stuff you do along the way. The great side quests, the random fights, and the times where you get to just sit down and enjoy a bowl of ramen. With how good the last few Yakuza games were, I'm now very hopeful for how this game can turn out, and I think that it's very easily possible that this could turn out to be one of the very best games that comes out in all of 2019. Number 3. Resident Evil 2 Remake. The genre of survival horror keeps going through big ebbs and flows, where it seems like the entire industry gets interested in it, makes some good games, and then eventually they abandon it. And then we go through these dark times, only for them to once again circle back on it a couple years later. And it seems like right now we're starting to come back into a really interesting survival horror renaissance. And I think the best thing that's going to kick that off is the RE2 remake. Now, if you hear me talking slow or on the verge of yelling, it's because this is still one of my favorite survival horror games ever played. I mean, I've played a ton of stuff in this genre in general, but RE2, the cool freaking scares, the great jump moments, the fact that you have to count every single bullet as it leaves your guns to make sure you don't run out of ammunition and get eaten alive, it is a perfectly constructed collage of great calamity that just highlights the chaos and conundrums of good combat. And for that reason, I am just losing my mind all over again for the fact that this game seems so different and yet so rooted in the magnificence that Resident Evil first grew from. Number 2. Shenmue 3. What we have here is not only one of the biggest Kickstarters ever made, but perhaps one of the most talked about projects in all of gaming history, and for that reason, I have to say that it's impossible for me to ignore my own hype for it. I mean, Shenmue itself holds a giant place in my heart. It's what I consider the first open world game I ever got to sit down with. I have spent literally hundreds of hours playing through these games over and over again, getting every collectible, finding every secret, unlocking every cutscene in my quest to try and avenge Lan Di, to find him and kill him for taking out my father. And now we're probably getting closer to solving that mystery after waiting decades. Shenmue 3 is a game that I honestly never thought I'd get a chance to play in my life, and here it is, merely months away. I would not trade spots with anybody in any timeline simply because I am going to be the first person in the world to try and beat this. I am so excited, and it's something that my 12-year-old self would have lost his freaking brains shooting out of the back of his head if he knew that I was getting a chance to do it. Number 1. The Outer Worlds. There are a lot of franchises out there that get a really big fan base simply because they come out with a couple games that are extremely noteworthy, and I think that one of them is definitely Fallout. Now, I'm not saying that Fallout's bad, I'm actually saying that they're amazing, but most people really kind of just remember Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4, and definitely not things like Fallout 1 or Fallout 76. But what's really interesting is that people a lot of times forget that Fallout as a series was actually invented by the people who made New Vegas. Now, this was a long time ago, and since then, they sold the rights of the series over to Bethesda, who obviously made it super famous. But now, they've finally decided that they've gotten enough money together and enough time and effort to put into it that they have had a chance to create their own version of Fallout once again, and this looks so spectacular. The Outer Worlds is not necessarily going to be a completely free roam game, but instead a series of quest hubs where we get to go into cities, meet some cool characters, do some great quests, and once we level up, maybe progress to the next planet. There's still not a ton of details known about it, but already I have to say that it is by far my most exciting game of the year because it just looks like something that seems to be fulfilling so many promises that Bethesda fans love. It's going to have so many dialogue trees, so many customization options, and so many things to get us more addicted to the great worlds that they have been able to create. And for that reason, I awarded this my pick as the most hyped game of 2019. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. For this entire video, I'm secretly wearing my Shenmue shirt because I am just so out of my gourd hyped for Shenmue 3. Man, I still can't believe that game's even real. I'm just so ready to just fast forward to the future and play it right freaking now. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.